Happy Thursday, everybody. And we've got 10 games tonight. I'm wearing a jacket that my wife actually made for me. So, as I haven't had a chance to wear it out and around, I'm wearing it in video because it is a fun jacket. So, yeah, I thought I'd explain that at the start because people are like, why is he wearing a jacket? Well, there's also the fact that it's usually cold in this room, so the jacket helps. Yeah, it's cold in this room right now. All right. So, Rangers. New York Rangers are in against Montreal, trying to start this unlikely charge that they've been on, and trying to do so without Shesterkin. And so far, so good. It's been one game. Don't get ahead of ourselves. Now, the Rangers are 34, 24, and 4. And they have to be liking what they're seeing, that teams ahead of them are stumbling and staggering a little bit. Now they're 8-2 in their last 10, and on the road they're 17, 11, and 2. And again, it's quite the story, and the Montreal Canadiens will be looking to change it. The Montreal Canadiens are 29, 27, and 9. Over their last 10, they're 4, 4, and 2. And at home, they're 13, 15, and 6. And this has been their problem all year. They don't win at home. So we can get into what Bergevin's done, what he hasn't done, and what parts of the roster couldn't be fixed and what can't, and how many injuries they've had. But they just don't win at home. And if they'd won at home with more regularity or defeated the Detroit Red Wings, they'd be a playoff team. November 23rd, these teams met in Montreal. The Rangers won that one 6-5. That was a game where Montreal had a huge lead, and then they didn't. December 6th, Montreal beat the Rangers 2-1 in their revenge game. This one is the rubber match, and we have yet to see a home team win in this series between the two. Scoring on the road. So I went with on the road and at home. Scoring on the road for the Rangers, Panarin has 17 goals and 23 assists on the road this year. Zibanejad, 18 goals, 13 assists, and Strome has 9 goals and 18 assists. They will be backstopped by Georgiev. So if you're looking for a last Lundqvist versus Price, potentially if Lundqvist retires this summer, won't get it tonight. And the Rangers don't meet Montreal again this season. On the Montreal side, at home, Tatar has 9 goals and 17 assists. Domi, 5 goals, 17 assists. And Petrie has 5 goals and 15 assists. And they will be backstopped by Carey Price, who has been decent. And again, where things with Price to me get kind of ridiculous is when it turns into, well, he's the greatest goaltender of his generation. He's the greatest goaltender in the world. Let's avoid the hyperbole. Let's avoid the puffing everything up, and let's just talk about where we're at. Price is a pretty good goaltender who has excellent runs and then some mediocre numbers at other times. And it is on Bergevin. It is on him to decide how to fix this issue and to make things better for his goaltender and for his team in general. We'll see how things go in the offseason. Next up, Chicago. The Blackhawks in against Tampa. So for the Blackhawks, they're playing out the string. They're 27, 28, and 8, but they're a prideful team, so they put on a good show even in a loss. Ask St. Louis. In their last 10, they're 2, 7, and 1. On the road, they're 14, 15, and 4. So overall, they're 500 at home. They're one game below 500 on the road. So again, they won enough games to stay in the race for as long as they could, but they lost enough games to never really be in a driver's seat when it came to a playoff position. The Tampa Bay Lightning, 40, 18, and 5. They have to be smarting after their last few games. They're now 7 and 3 in their last 10. At home, they're 28 and 4. November 21st, Tampa Bay won this meeting in Chicago 4-2. And it's worthy of note that the top teams in the league, a lot of them seem to be in a funk right now. And it's a matter of who's going to pull out of it, because the numbers would tell you that the teams that play really well towards the end of the season are usually the ones that do well in the playoffs. Makes sense. Scoring on the road for the Chicago Blackhawks, Kane leads there with 16 goals and 30 assists. Taves, 10 goals, 22 assists. And Kubalik has 14 goals and 11 assists. They will be backstopped by Corey Crawford, who will see the net a lot now that Subban's there rather than Leonard. On the Tampa Bay side, Kucherov, 14 goals, 26 assists for him at home this year. Hedman has 8 goals and 26 assists, and Stamkos 14 goals and 18 assists at home for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They will be backstopped by Curtis McElhinney. So we'll see how things go tonight. Maybe McElhinney can have better luck than Vasilevsky's been having lately. Certainly Vasilevsky's numbers have taken a beating. And McElhinney has shown recently that his numbers can come up. So I don't see any reason Tampa shouldn't win this game, but Tampa's lost a few now, and they need to straighten this out. Because again, one of the top teams in the league can have those downbeats, but it is weird how they all seem to be having those at the same time right now. Next up is Toronto in against Florida. So this is the battle for third in the division. This is that game that if you're a Buffalo fan, you're really hoping it's not a 3-point game. Now, Toronto's 33-23-8 overall. Over their last 10, they're 5-4-1, and on the road, they're 17-14-1. And who shows up in this game? So Toronto has lost 3 out of 5, or they've won 2 out of 3. They just beat Tampa, and they look good, or they lost to a Zamboni driver on the weekend. It's the Leafs. So this is what happens. The Florida Panthers are 33-24-6. Over their last 10, they're 4-6 now after that win against Arizona. They're 16-12-2 at home. They have to start playing better at home than they have been over the last month. These teams met January 12th in Florida. Florida won that game 8-4, and that was embarrassing. And then February 3rd, and again, knowing these teams were fighting it out for the same playoff spot, Florida beat them again 5-3 in Toronto. They will meet again March 23rd in Toronto. Toronto wants to change the narrative. They have to do so with a victory tonight. If they lose against Florida, the narrative becomes, they can't beat Florida. Pretty simple narrative. Scoring on the road, Tavares, 16 goals, 14 assists for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nylander, 15 goals and 15 assists. Matthews, 13 goals and 14 assists on the road this year. At home, Huberdeau for Florida, 13 goals, 32 assists, 45 points. Barkov, 12 goals, 23 assists, 35 points. And Hoffman has 14 goals, 12 assists, 26 points. And he didn't go anywhere at the deadline. So no confirmation on goaltenders. I would think Freddie Anderson at one end, Sergei Bobrovsky at the other. There's a reason they're the starters, and we'll see how things go for them tonight. I do think that Florida probably wins this game, and I say that because Toronto 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down. That generally seems to be the way things work. And they beat Pittsburgh, they shut them out, they look great, and then they look miserable and horrible against Carolina, and then they look fantastic against Tampa for the most part. And now it's time for the bad game. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do from now till the end of the year, but they need to have that consistent effort. Because when people talk about, they've got a lot of injuries. I know. But still, with those injuries, they've had a couple of really good games. And so when the effort is there, and the players themselves have said the effort's not there, and I think it's pretty damning when a player goes, I probably didn't try very hard tonight. You're making how much money? You should probably try a little harder because you're making... But again, there's something to be said about when a player gets that contract and they have guaranteed money for the next 5 or 6 years. There are some players who aren't as motivated after that. And maybe, why should I listen to this guy behind me at the bench? Because if we don't play well, he's the one that's gone, not me. They're not going to get rid of me. So that can happen. Players do sometimes kind of get into that mindset. Next up, Dallas in against Boston. So while these ones are all at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, this one starts at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. There's a bunch of games starting at 4:30 Pacific. It's going to be another busy night for me. Boston's at home against Dallas, which means I can wear Boston and feel all right about it because they're playing against Dallas. So if Dallas wins, that's okay too. It's one of those few times during the year where I'm like, this is just going to be fun. I'm just going to sit down and watch a game. Going to enjoy it. 37-20-6 is the record for Dallas. I don't sit, of course. There is nowhere for me to sit, and if I sit down, then one of these cats ends up in my lap, and then I can't keep track of scores with that happening. Last 10 games for Dallas, they're 7-2-1, and on the road they're 18-10-4. They're playing well. Boston, not so much. Boston's 39-13-12 right now. They are 7-3 in their last 10, and at home they're 21-3-9 after losing their last game at home against Calgary. So for Dallas, I do think they can come in and win this tonight, but I wore Boston anyways because it doesn't matter. It's fine. I could have wore both teams. It would have been just fine. Boston won this meeting October 3rd in Dallas, 2-1. So first game of the season. Not an exciting game as I remember it either. It was a pretty boring game. Hopefully tonight's a little more exciting. Scoring on the road for Dallas, Sagan, 11 goals, 16 assists. Hintz, 13 goals and 6 assists. And Jamie Benn with 6 goals and 11 assists. They will be backed up by Ben Bishop. So Bishop will be in net tonight. On the Boston side, Pasternak, 26 goals and 20 assists at home for 46 points. Marchand, 13 goals, 25 assists, 38 points, again at home. And Bergeron, 13 goals, 15 assists, 28 points. When these guys are your top 3 scorers, it doesn't change the narrative from they rely too much on their first line. They probably do, but there's still enough scoring through the lineup. They should be all right. Halak's going to be starting for them tonight, which makes sense because Rask, his numbers are kind of dropping a little bit, and it's fine. This is why you have a 1A, 1B situation in Boston, but we'll see. That being said, I do need to change boards. Alrighty, Vancouver's in against Ottawa. Now, most years, Vancouver and Ottawa, I would kind of have a similar attitude. Like, well, if Vancouver's going to lose, if it's against Ottawa, it's okay. But Vancouver needs to not lose against Ottawa. And Ottawa kind of scares me because Ottawa does have that work ethic. And they're kind of due for a win. And Vancouver, they're coming out of that comeback victory from against Montreal. I don't know. It makes me a little nervous. 34, 22, and 6 is the overall record for Vancouver. This game starts at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific as well. 4-4 and 2 record over their last 10. On the road, they're 14, 15 and 2. They got to 500 on the road earlier in the season and fell below. I think they've done it more than once. They need to have a good road record, especially if they end up making the playoffs and they end up being a lower seed. Now, on the Ottawa side, they're 21, 31 and 12. They know they're not making the playoffs. Over their last 10, they're 3, 6 and 1. And at home, they're 15, 13, and 6. But there's also no pressure on Ottawa. And there's some young guys in the lineup looking to make an impression. And some veterans playing for jobs next year. Vancouver won this meeting December 3rd in Vancouver by a score of 5-2. Scoring on the road for Vancouver, Horvat has 13 goals, 16 assists. I think he'd admit he's been better on the road than at home. For the most part, it's been evening out lately. Quinn Hughes, 3 goals, 24 assists, 27 points on the road. And Pettersson, 11 goals, 15 assists, 26 points. I've seen comments like, what's wrong with Pettersson? It's his sophomore year. This happens. And you know what? It's a good thing they went out and got Miller, or otherwise this season might have been a loss as well. Demko will be starting. Demko will start a ton until the return of Markstrom. Now, on the Ottawa side, Duclair is the leading scorer for this team at home games. 14 goals, 12 assists at home for him this year. Tkachuk, 9 goals, 15 assists, and Chris Tierney, 9 goals and 12 assists at home. Hogberg is listed as likely. And regardless of who starts in this game, I have a feeling we'll see some goals. This to me feels like a game that's going to have a bunch of goals in it. But we'll see. All right, next up, we've got Minnesota in against the Detroit Red Wings. So for the Minnesota Wild, who are still in this, they are still in it. And I know there's Minnesota fans who may not think that they are. I live with one that doesn't think that they're in this. But they are, and I keep telling her, look where they are in the standings and look where the other teams are and how things are going right now. 30, 25, and 7 is the record for Minnesota. Over their last 10, they're 6-3 and 1. If they can go 6-3 and 1 in their next 10, they'll get that much closer to their goal. On the road, they're 12, 15, and 2. Their road record has been getting better. On the Detroit side of things, 15, 46, and 4. There's not a whole lot getting better about Detroit right now other than their future. They're 2 and 8 in their last 10, and at home they're 10, 20, and 2. January 22nd, Minnesota won this meeting in Minnesota 4-2. And there you go. So Detroit looking for revenge, I guess, looking for their 16th win. I would think at this point, if you're in the Detroit locker room, you're thinking, if we can get to 20 wins, just if we can get to 20, we can win 5 games for the rest of the season. It's not that bad. Now, scoring on the road for Minnesota, Suter, 5 goals, 18 assists for the Wild. Zuccarello, 9 goals, 13 assists. Fiala, 7 goals, 11 assists. He, of course, been fantastic. And Stahl, also 7 goals and 11 assists. Stalock is listed as likely in net for Minnesota tonight. On the Detroit side, Larkin's got 9 goals, 16 assists. Hronek, 6 goals, 14 assists. And Bertuzzi, 5 goals, 15 assists at home for Detroit this year. So Bertuzzi at home, only the 5 goals. That surprises me. Howard is listed as likely. So if Howard goes in, Minnesota wins. This isn't a trap game if Howard goes in. Howard's 2-22 and 2. I just don't believe that they'll win with Howard in net. So we'll see what Minnesota does tonight. But if it's Jimmy Howard at the other end, then that's a win for Minnesota. And Detroit, they've had a long year. All right, next up. Islanders in against St. Louis. Now we're up to an 8 o'clock Eastern start, 5 o'clock Pacific. And for the Islanders, well, and again, it's been a rocky road. They still look like they should make the playoffs, but it's going to be tough. 35-20-7 is their overall record. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10. And on the road, they're 15-13-2. And they're coming off of that loss against the Rangers, which probably left a bad taste in their mouths. Just guessing. St. Louis, they're coming off of that thrilling victory over Chicago, which they probably came out of and said, oh, we can't play defense like that again. And it looked like their defense regressed into where it was when they were going through that really rough patch for a few weeks. But they're 37-17-10. Their overall record's excellent. They are 5-3-2 in their last 10. They've won a bunch of games in a row. And at home, they're 21-6-5. So the numbers would seem to favor St. Louis. These teams met in New York earlier this year. The Islanders won that in overtime 3-2 on October 14th. Now, scoring on the road for the Islanders, Nelson, 10 goals and 11 assists for him. So again, he leads the team in road scoring. Barzal, 8 goals, 10 assists. And Bailey, 4 goals, 14 helpers for him. On the St. Louis side of things, Jaden Schwartz is their leading scorer at home. 12 goals, 15 assists. Shen, 9 goals, 18 assists. And Perron is right there with 13 goals and 13 assists for 26 points. No confirmation of a goaltender for the Islanders. I would think this might be the best place to go with Grace. He's got to start getting into games again. And Bennington will be the starter for the St. Louis Blues. So Bennington has a chance to add to his wins total and maybe get closer to Vasilevsky as a result. And for the St. Louis Blues, a win tonight would continue this run that they've been on. And for the Islanders, it's going to be tough. It is going to be tough because St. Louis is kind of firing on all cylinders right now. Next up, Calgary in against the Nashville Predators. The Flames, 33-25-6 overall. Last 10 games, they're 6-4, and on the road, they're 19-13-2. And they have to feel pretty good coming out of that game in Boston. It does not get easier. Nashville, while they don't have a great record at home, it's been getting better. They are getting better. They're 31-23-8 overall. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10, and this is direct competition. These guys fighting over a wild card spot. 15-12-4 at home is the record for the Nashville Predators. And again, they're starting to make it so that playing in Nashville is a lot tougher than what it was, say, a month ago. October 31st, Calgary won this meeting in Nashville, 6-5 in overtime. And February 6th, Nashville won in Calgary 3-2. So the home team has not won a meeting this year between these two teams. We'll see how it goes tonight in the rubber match. And for Calgary again, and for Nashville, they are both fighting for their playoff lives. For the Preds, they do have games in hand. You got to win them. You have to win those games in hand. So until they've played them out, we have no idea how that's going to work out for them. Tonight's going to be a good indicator of whether or not Calgary's win over Boston was a one-off or if they've got some sustainable success going on with them right now. Lindholm leads them in road scoring with 15 goals, 14 assists for 29 points. Tkachuk, 10 goals, 18 assists. And Backlund, 10 goals, 13 assists for the Calgary Flames. On the Nashville side, Yossi, 7 goals, 16 assists for 23 points. Forsberg, 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points. And Matt Duchene, 3 goals, 15 assists for 18 points. 3 goals at home for Matt Duchene. That just seems anemic. Saros is listed as the likely starter. There's no confirmation with Calgary. I would think Riddick, but Riddick and Talbot have both been playing relatively well. I don't think the goaltending's been a problem, at least not recently. We'll see how things go tonight against Nashville, a team whose goaltending seems to be getting better. Once again, got to change boards. We've got Washington in Winnipeg tonight. So this is a rematch from 2 nights ago. And for the Capitals, who are now 39-18-6, suddenly they're looking a little more comfortable in first place. Pittsburgh's fallen off the pace. They're doing well, but they got to keep their eyes on Philadelphia. Philadelphia's not that far back. They are 4-5-1 in their last 10. So Washington's still trying to pull their way out of this muck they've been in. And blowing a 3-goal lead against Winnipeg in their last game isn't going to make them feel good either. On the road, they're 21-9-1. Now, for Winnipeg, who are 32, 27, and 6, they're looking at the standings today. They're outside the playoffs. And their road into the playoffs is simple. They've got to get some wins, and they've got to hope that Calgary takes some losses or Nashville takes some losses, and that Arizona stays cold. Now, in their last 10, they're 5-4-1, including that shootout loss against the Washington Capitals, where their fifth shooter was Ovechkin. It's obnoxious. At home, they're 16-14-3. At home, they're not as good as they are on the road mostly, but their home record seems to be getting better. February 25th, of course, that's 2 days ago. Washington won in a shootout 4-3. And we'll see how things go for them tonight. Road scoring for the Capitals. Carlson, 10 goals, 31 assists, 41 points. Ovechkin, 24 goals, 7 assists, 31 points. And Jacob Vrana, 10 goals, 14 assists, 24 points. He just set a new career high of 25 goals in his last game. We'll see if he can add 26 today. Samsonov is listed as the starter for tonight's game. Kyle Connor at home, 16 goals, 15 assists, 31 points. He had a highlight reel goal in the last game between these two. He's going to try to do it again tonight. Laine, 16 goals, 13 assists. And Scheifele, 11 goals, 18 assists to round out the top three. Hellebuck will be the starter for the Jets tonight. Makes sense. Last game it was Holtby against Brossoit. Now it's Hellebuck against Samsonov. Let's see how that goes. And again, Winnipeg fighting for their playoff lives. And last but not least, we've got the New Jersey Devils in against San Jose. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the East Coast is totally staying up till 10:30 their time. 7:30 Pacific to watch and see whether or not New Jersey and San Jose tear the house down. These teams met February 20th. New Jersey won that game 2-1. So look for another barn burner. And all kidding aside, New Jersey has been playing very well lately. New Jersey's 25, 27, and 10 overall. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're 13 and 17 on the road. Now, one caveat I'll throw in there is don't get too romantically attached to how well your team plays after the deadline if they're outside the playoffs. There are teams we've seen play very well their last 15, 20 games even who are outside the playoffs that you think, okay, so next year they're going to be back, and then they're not. So I'm not saying that New Jersey's one of those. Just, keep that in mind. Take it all with a grain of salt once the team's kind of out of it and there's no pressure. Now, San Jose's 26, 33, and 4. Over their last 10, they're 4 and 6. And at home, they're 14, 15, and 1. It's really kind of fallen off the rails for them. Scoring on the road, Gusev, 5 goals, 14 assists, leads the way for New Jersey. Zajac, 4 goals, 12 assists, and Nico Hischier, 8 goals and 6 assists. Blackwood, I would imagine, would start tonight since Schneider started the last game. On the San Jose side, Burns, 6 goals, 15 assists, 21 points. I haven't heard confirmation Couture's back, but I put Couture on the board. 6 goals, 14 assists at home. And Timo Meier, 10 goals and 9 assists to round things out. I tried to make sure there weren't players on the list that were injured. There's a lot of injured players right now, so I apologize if there are players on the list who are injured. And on the San Jose front, I kind of expect Dell in this one, but yeah, it could be Jones. I don't know that it necessarily makes a big difference at this point. Jones has been playing better, and Dell's kind of, I don't know, the last few games his stats haven't been great, so we'll see what happens. So there you go. You're all set for tonight's games. Let me know your winners, all that stuff in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And yeah, my wife's been told many times, she was told many times at Disney when we were wearing clothes she'd made us, that she could make money online doing that. She used to, but people in general weren't very nice to her. So, and that's the way it works. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Do hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I will talk to you again soon.